Texas back.
But I plan to make well over 1,000. I don't plan on going to sleep tonight.
Probably go 71-68. UNC versus Kansas.
Why did that get bring up? Why are we doing that?
Woo-sooey, pig-sooey.
I would disagree with the hot hand part because, like I said, Longhorns won 19 of their last 20.
I hope it's not close. I hope Texas gets destroyed.
I think because I would have San Diego State in this matchup, I have to go UConn.
Texas friends, feel free to DM me on the Twitter, which you don't know, and that's for good reason.
Hey y'all, my name is Riley Dutcher, and I'm smarter than all you guys because I won Outsiders Opinion's second bracket challenge. Now back to Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our Outsiders Opinions March Madness Opinions of the Week. We're here with a special guest, as you can see, / March Madness expert, Jake Loggins, who won our bracket group. There should be a video displaying the top 9 right now, and I'm going to scroll down to 10, 11, 12. But before we get to that, I already introduced Jake, but it's my only co-host, Austin.
I appreciate that, Kevin. I mean, there's a lot we've been through, and I hope Jake's perfection here, or close to, doesn't take that away. But I was impressed, Jake. You did something that a lot of true experts, people that are paid actual money to make predictions, couldn't do. So,
thank you, Austin. I mean, to say near perfect is ridiculous in regards to March Madness.
For this year, with everything that happened with a 5, a 9, a 5, and a 4 in the Final Four, I mean, what you did here was definitely spectacular in your major bracket. People could make a lot of brackets. I myself made a lot of brackets. But this being the channel's official bracket, we only get one try. There's one official bracket for our channel, and many people have their one official bracket, and ours was pretty close to the extreme best.
And if I can go through the full list, also shout out to special guest that we had for a job interview, Raymond Hatcher. He finished in the 5. So 1, Jake. 2, the official bracket, I believe, which is our highest one yet. Then we have 3, H-Man, Texas Legend, Harrison, DMAVs 28, Yo Hook'em. Well, that did not happen in the tournament. Then we have Sasser to the Moon. Then we have the OG champ coming in 7. Then UCLA. And then the OG champ again. Then we have Austin. Then we have the best UC. Then we have me. And then we have Raymond Hatcher again. So pretty good. And this is the first time that we actually got our winner that won the championship. So thanks again, Jake, for doing this. And now this video, we're going to review our bracket. We're going to go through all the games, hopefully quickly, so it's not an hour and 45-minute episode. But I'm going to click on the bracket right now while Austin and Jake add some final thoughts.
I would like to say something real quick. Our top 2, so Jake and then the channel's perfect bracket, were over double anyone else in points, which I haven't seen that normally. Normally, it's close enough to where there's somewhat of a close score at the end where, well, one team wins and this person's a winner, and if the other team wins, this person's a winner. But no, it's been set in stone ever since UConn made the Final Four and Texas did not.
Well, another thing that was very interesting is that for me personally, when we were having we were making the video and we were discussing who was going to win, who was not going to win, I found myself changing a lot of my picks the days after we recorded it. And because I would do more research, I would think about it more, there would be injury updates and then things like that. And so it was very interesting to see the way that I could to go back at those videos and hear the opinions that I had, and then mere hours or days, just a few days later, how much my opinion changed based off of just a couple players, a couple bits of research. And that's what March Madness does to you. It makes you second guess. It makes you reevaluate. I mean, and it's a craft. It really is a craft to try and put together a solid bracket. But we did a good job. I appreciate what we did. I would like to give props to Austin for the San Diego State pick because, I mean, I knew they were good. I was skeptical. I was skeptical of not of San Diego State, but of Alabama's poor playing.
I will say something in that video that was 100% true that both of us fully agreed on is when Brandon Miller falls after the first two games, because it didn't really matter those first two. Alabama was too good outside of Brandon Miller. But we said when he falls, when he is not at his best, Alabama loses. And that's what happened. You shoot 3 for 19 against a great defensive team. That's all she wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Actually, before that, Jake, I have one question. What's the biggest change from our episode that you made in your bracket?
Okay, the biggest change I think I made. I think it was. Oh shoot! Let me go back. I think it may have been Duke. I eventually had Duke going to the Final Four in my official bracket, and that ended up being a bad one. That ended up being a very, very bad pick, and so that was one that I think. Yeah, you guys have originally had Oral Roberts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It didn't really matter after the first game, though.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait! I had Memphis beating Duke in the Sweet 16. And then I eventually changed it to Duke going to the Final Four. Either way, none of those worked out in the end. But that was some of the research. And then one of the things that I originally had, we talked a lot about Drake beating and upsetting Miami, and for me, it came down to whether Omier was going to play, and I didn't find out that Omier was playing until after the brackets had locked. And so I still had Drake in it. And then as soon as I found out Omier was playing, I was like, no, shoot. But then I was like, dang it. And then they ended up going to the final. I still would have had them lose to Houston. Another change I think I made.
Okay. I just want to know your main change.
My favorite one was Penn State beating Texas A&M.
Okay. All right. So Austin, we talked about a few games in two of those regions, East and Midwest. So I'll let you choose. We'll go region by region. Which one do you want to start with, East or Midwest?
Let's go East.
All right. So we'll go with East. And we're trying to do this quickly, and then we'll talk about some games. This one we'll probably spend a little bit more time on. FDU upsets Purdue. We had Purdue winning. This one, I just don't think anyone saw it coming.
Purdue, I knew, was weak. We all knew they were weak. But this week, incredible. I don't know what to say.
I had no clue Zach Edey couldn't lift them out of this slump. Did they? I don't remember. Maybe I do remember. Did they just not feed him at the end of the game?
The last 5 minutes, he did not touch a ball except for rebounds. So he would pass the ball, and then he'd never touch the ball in offense again. So they just refused to get him the ball. He did not particularly play bad. If you look at stats or even field goal percentage, they just deny, and no one else could beat them. And that's why we were worried about Purdue going far in the first place, which we didn't believe, and it didn't happen. I don't think they would have beat FAU even if they ended up beating FDU. Just they're too one-player centric.
Yep. And they never survive.
That's true. Now we go to Memphis and FAU, another pick that we missed. FAU won. FAU went really far. And so Memphis and FAU won just by a single point.
It was a great game. I watched it. Amazing game. Both teams were really good. Both of those teams, I think the winner of that game goes to the Final Four. If Memphis had gotten that timeout call and Memphis holds onto the ball and everything works out for Memphis, I think Memphis goes to the Final Four. FAU, a great team. A team that I said in the video should not have been a 9 seed. In the regular season, I believe they were 30-3 or 29-3. They won 5 games. No, they won 4 games in the tournament. So they were 31-3 heading into the tournament. They should not have been a 9 seed. So that's a tough draw for Memphis in the first place. And FAU was a good team, one of the best rebounding teams in the country, a team that led the league in bench points. So it's a well-crafted team.
Yeah, I didn't do enough research on FAU. I just saw Memphis and was like, oh my God, Memphis looks so great and they can score and they're scrappy. And so I was just like sold on Memphis no matter who they would have played. But obviously, it got to me. I wasn't smart enough, and I probably should have looked at FAU more and watched them play and should have seen how they gelled. And but it was a close game, probably the toughest matchup FAU had. I mean, they in the entire tournament until they got to San Diego State.
Yep.
Yep. Now we go Duke versus Oral Roberts. Duke won 74-51. Austin, you and I believed in Oral Roberts. They just couldn't do it this year. And it looks like, I know their coach left and Asmus is entering the transfer portal.
Yeah. What happened here, if you watched the game, the Duke was like, okay, Max Asmus, you're going to be triple teamed. Let's see if anyone else can do anything. And it was the Purdue effect. Same thing that happened. The other team was just Duke, so it was a much more of a blowout.
Yeah, and Duke was a good team, though. They still had Jeremy Roach and Filipowski and Lively. They're a solid squad. And I believed in them from the get-go, considering I had them in my Final Four in my official bracket. And so I liked this Duke squad, and they got me really excited after that Oral Roberts game. To no avail later on, though.
Yep, and the next game is Tennessee versus UL. Tennessee actually won this one. We had the upset happening, and Tennessee pulled through.
Louisiana should have won this game. I watched it. I was so mad at the end.
Me too.
Louisiana played their heart out. And the fact that Tennessee ended up beating Duke after this game still baffles me.
Yeah, I have no clue. I mean, I was not sold on Tennessee at all, which is why I had them losing in the first round. Because what was the stat? They had lost 7 of their last 10, and
Yeah.
they had lost or something like that. They had lost to Kai Ziegler. The only reason they were able to beat Duke was Nkamwa went like 6 or 7 from 3 or something ridiculous.
It was a crazy. Yeah.
And it was just an out of nowhere performance against Duke for them to even make it to the Sweet 16. But they squeaked by UL Lafayette, and so that's what made me think, oh, Duke's got this in the bag, and that obviously wasn't the case in hindsight. And so Tennessee was probably the weirdest team of the tournament for me.
And then we had not gotten a pick right until we got to Kansas and Kentucky Providence. Then we had Kansas State and Montana State. Got both of those right. And then Michigan State, USC, we got that right as well. And then Marquette, Vermont. Since our analysis was pretty spot on with those first 4 games in this bracket, I kind of jumbled them up. What sticks out to both of y'all?
I mean, I think all of those were relatively easy, except maybe the Providence versus Kentucky, but I didn't really believe in Providence this year. None of those picks were all that difficult. I didn't like Montana State. USC had a lot of injury problems. Vermont was not a good team. I was pretty sold on all those picks.
Yeah, I was pretty sold on them as well. I love Oscar Tshiebwe as a player. I just love, and so that was kind of like an emotional pick because I just love him so much. But I also believed in his rebounding ability and in Kentucky's because they're Kentucky. They have a great squad, and their performances, their poor performances in the season aren't indicative of their actual, they aren't representative of their actual talent and their ability. And so I believed that the run that they went on at the end of the season was going to carry on into the tournament, and they ended up winning the first game, and I was happy about that.
Yes, and then we'll go to Michigan State versus Marquette. Michigan State actually pulled off the upset. We have Marquette going to the Final Four, so this was one of the big blows to our bracket.
Shooting. Michigan State, great shooting team, one of the best shooting teams in the country, and Marquette could not guard the 3-ball well enough.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And Kolek and some of those guys on Marquette didn't come through in big moments when they needed to, and that's what happens in March Madness. You get to those close ending games, and then you miss your shots, and then you have to foul, and then they just make their 2 free throws because if they're a good shooting team, they'll make their free throws. And so there was a point when it was a point of no return for Marquette when they couldn't hit those shots towards the end.
Yes, and then Kentucky versus K-State. We had K-State winning, so not much analysis there. But then we have Duke versus Tennessee. These were 2 teams that we did not have going far, and then Tennessee won. We already touched a little bit on it. Any other thoughts?
Nope, just shocked.
Yeah, that was the funkiest region of all the regions for me. No one thought FAU was even going to make it that far. We didn't think they were going to make it out of the first round, and they did. Tennessee, FDU, all that, and so there it was a tough region for this year.
Yes, the final game of the second round was FAU versus FDU, wild, and then we had FAU beating Tennessee in the Sweet 16.
Well, the bracket had that. We didn't have FAU being.
Well, yeah, we didn't have that. I was just reviewing the games because this is probably our worst bracket. Yeah, it is.
Region? Yeah.
I
mean, there's so much that happened. I mean, FAU beating FDU. FAU is just a more rounded team, and that's the same thing that happened against Tennessee. FAU is just a very dangerous team. Their offensive rebounding at the end of the game was huge.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then we'll do K-State advances an incredible game in Sweet 16, and then they faced and lost to FAU in the Elite Eight.
Great game.
Oh, I believed in Kansas State. I believed in Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. That was such a fun squad to watch. Noel Noel for me this year was like Carson Edwards in 2019. Like he was so fun to watch, and he was
different
20 assists.
Different vibes because Carson was actually scoring while Noel was contributing in other factors, but.
In terms of like excitement, in terms of the player that I was most excited to watch.
Yeah, short guy goes off.
Yeah.
That alley-oop was really cool.
No, that's the best play of the tournament. If there's a play of the tournament, it's him arguing with Jerome Tang and then no look lobbing it to Keontae Johnson, who does a reverse dunk. Yeah, that's play of the tournament.
Awesome. Yes, so they lost to FAU. But I believe we can say adios to this region and go to...
Please.
Jake, I'll let you decide. Midwest or West?
Midwest or West? I would like to discuss the Midwest next.
All right. So we'll go Houston versus NKU. Houston won. Then not much analysis there. Then Iowa, Auburn. Auburn upset. We had Iowa winning. Thoughts?
I don't trust Iowa ever in men's college basketball ever again. Iowa just consistently, in my best bracket I've ever had, probably at least through the first 2 days of games. So into the second round, I had Iowa trusting them to beat Tennessee, and then they lost to Tennessee in overtime. It was a great game in 2019, but Iowa's defense is just never there, and they never can make up for it on the offensive end.
I never liked Iowa. Last year, for some godforsaken reason, I had them in the Final Four. And I looked back at my 2022 bracket, and I was like, what was I doing? Because I have never liked Iowa. And in 2021, I had them lose in the second round to Oregon, and they did, when they still had Luka Garza and the three-point shooter, number 3 or whatever. Forgot his name. But I've never liked Iowa, and and Auburn is feisty, and it's at the point where I'm starting to think you just need to pick the coach that's a better coach. It's like Bruce Pearl or whoever Iowa's coach is, I guess. I don't know him. And they outcoached him. Bruce Pearl outcoached Iowa, and they out-rebounded and just out-aggressive them. I mean, it was crazy how well Auburn, and I had Auburn winning originally, and then I changed it to Iowa because I saw, top 5 offense. Maybe they'll do something. And then once again, they reinforced my idea that I should never pick Iowa. And I'm glad now that you're on the train, Austin.
This is a pick that was probably our worst in the fact that we should have known. With FAU versus Memphis is still a great team. Like I said, either team wins that, they go to the Final Four, in my opinion. Like, those are 2 great coach team, very deep, good defense, good offense. But no, this is one where we should have known better.
Yeah, I should have known better than to flip to Iowa. I saw the way Auburn was playing, and they just were a more complete squad. And so I shouldn't have bought into the hype. I hate it. I hate it when I do that. I do that every year a couple times, and I always
that was me. That was me with Furman. Furman was one of the teams that we'll get to them eventually. But I was so high on them all year. all year. Jalen Slauson, I think, is going to be a future NBA starter. I've said that so many times. And then I pick Virginia. And I'm like, why did I buy into Virginia? In 90% of my brackets, I pick Virginia, even though I'm so high on Furman and all they're doing. And it's games like those that just makes you reconsider your sanity because you're like so high on a team that happens.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll go to Miami Drake and Indiana versus Kent State. We kind of talked about how we had Drake, but Miami beat us. But we did get the Indiana pick right over Kent State.
Yeah, Trace Jackson Davis.
Yeah, that was our reasoning for picking Indiana, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Enough.
And they also, yeah, go ahead. Who's their big guy? I'm blanking on his name. Indiana's big guy. Oh shit!
That's not. You talking about their center?
Yeah, the tall one.
I can't remember his name.
I'm blanking too. He had like the story. Miller Kopp. He was the guy. He wasn't the big guy then. He was the senior. Yeah. Either way, they had a good squad.
Yeah, and I think they were more well-rounded than Purdue was, because Purdue almost was only Zach Edey. But a big part of Trace Jackson's Davis's game is passing, and I think that's a part of why his success was more tied to one player than Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then we go to the other school in Iowa State, Pitt, and they lost to Pitt. Pitt was actually first 4 team, and Pitt advanced, and then we have Xavier beating Kennesaw State. Xavier was a pick that we got right.
For Iowa State, Pitt just played a team that was basically Iowa State and barely beat them, Mississippi State, and then they were prepared for this type of game. Mississippi State plays the same type of game that Iowa State does. They're very defensive centric. Let's have it be a 50-point game. Whoever gets to 50 wins. And Pitt knows how to play that after that first game, and they kind of rode that train. They didn't have to change up their schemes at all, and they beat Iowa State, who just could not score. It was maybe the worst offensive performance from a top 8 seed I've ever seen.
Yeah, this was definitely the poor performance of the tournament, or at least in the first round, maybe of the whole tournament. But Kevin, do you remember we were watching it, and I told you at the very beginning of the game, right as it was starting, I said, Kevin, I like this Pitt team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win. I kind of wish I picked them. I don't know if you remember me saying that, Kevin, but I did.
It sort of sounds familiar.
Yeah. Because I said I really like Blake Hinton. I love him as a ball player. He has experience. I really like. Oh shoot, Federico. I mean, he's just the name alone is fun. They had the twins who were tall and lanky and could block and get rebounds, and so I saw this Pitt squad, and before even the brackets had locked by then, but I was like, in hindsight, maybe I feel like I had this itching feeling that I should have picked Pitt, and it ended up happening, and so that was one of the ones where I was like, oh man, I wish I got that itching feeling a little sooner and changed it a little sooner, but yeah, and I was never big on Iowa State this year either. They had moments and they looked good in the Big 12 tournament, but there were times where they were just so streaky and just would shoot terribly. Kevin, remember when they came to Mizzou and we completely demolished them? Kalsher couldn't hit a shot, and no one could hit a shot on the team. And so, yeah, Iowa State, all-time poor performance for them.
What I'm hearing is the only things about Iowa that are important and you should believe in are Caitlin Clark and the Field of Dreams.
And Brock Purdy.
Oh, that's true. It's a good callback. So we got the little we got the trio, the triple threat. And
then the other game, Xavier almost gave us a freaking heart attack, almost lost to Kennesaw State. What a great game. Great performance by Kennesaw State. But I'm really happy Xavier pulled it out and ended up
Xavier, a team that is second in most tournament appearances without a Final Four appearance. The only one above them is BYU. Wanted to drop that stat. So Xavier's made 29 tournament appearances, no Final Fours. BYU's made 30. If Xavier would have lost that game, they have such a bad history in tournaments, especially when they're rated highly. I remember them getting upset a couple times, and that historic loss, remember, to Wisconsin. There's a lot of games there where I'm just like, well, this Xavier team's good, and now they're not good. And that it looked like it was going to be a very, very sad way to go out for a Xavier team that a lot of people thought were going to be good.
Yeah, it just blew me away because they were a decent shooting team. They were a decent defensive team. They had a really good squad with Boom and Colby Jones and Nunji and Kunkel. I mean, that's a great squad. Not having Zach Fremantle definitely hurts, but they had a good squad, and I that's why I had them going to the Elite Eight. And so to see that, having them in the Elite Eight and seeing them like losing to Kennesaw State, I was freaking out. I was like, oh no, not again. This is a Kentucky from last year flashback. And then they ended up pulling it out, thank God, thanks to what was it? Boom. Finally got a second gear. And so yeah, but it sucks because I loved watching this squad, and most of them are going to be gone next year. And so this was their opportunity. And
Xavier's going to be tough. Next year, it's going to be really tough for Xavier, especially with UConn coming back maybe better, which is
maybe
a problem.
better. Losing Hawkins is going to be tough for UConn, but we'll talk about that when we get to them.
Which will be in 2 days, based on this rate. Texas A&M versus Penn State and Texas versus Colgate. Penn State won, but we got Texas pick right. Texas fans are probably happy.
Yeah, there was no way Texas was losing to Colgate. People were always like, "Oh, Colgate can shoot." They can't play with big teams, and Texas inside was playing amazing. And for Penn State, Matthew Funk.
Yeah, Penn State looked good. I believed in Penn State because I had them winning this game in my bracket, and so yeah, it was one of those things where it's like Texas A&M was probably, other than Iowa State, I think Texas A&M was the biggest disappointment of the tournament. But they also weren't given a favorable ranking considering how good they were doing.
That's true. The biggest disappointment of the tournament was Purdue, but
I knew Purdue was going to lose, though. I knew
no.
Not in the first
losing to a 16 seed.
Even after the coach called out Purdue.
I wasn't surprised they lost in the first.
No. I wasn't absolutely. It wasn't Virginia. And I think that's the biggest reason why I still think the Virginia upset is bigger than the FDU upset. The Virginia one shocked me. They got 20 balled. The game was not close. That game was after I had Virginia in my Final Four that year in what I consider my best bracket. And then the next year I have them losing in the first round, and then they win the entire thing. So that just shows you karma, I guess. But
I don't remember who I had in the Final Four that year.
it was not good, but we can move on.
All right. So then Xavier and Texas both won, and then they faced each other. And then Texas won, beat Xavier. Man, that prediction did not go right. Jake, Austin and I did a separate prediction, and I called out Texas. And they must have heard me. But
I said Texas would win. It was in the writing. After how poorly Xavier played against the Kennesaw State team, and Texas is so well built, I found it hard to believe that they would lose.
Yeah, I originally said Texas was the hottest team, and they kind of were the hottest team at that time. Well, until we found out Miami was, or FAU was.
FAU,
yeah, all those teams were the hottest team. But I originally said Texas was the hottest team, and that they would probably make the Final Four, at least the Elite Eight. But then I saw Xavier, and I really liked them, and I had them go to the Elite Eight. But I also had Penn State beating Texas in the second round. And because I believed in Andrew Funk, and I believed in Pickett. And so and that was a big disappointment. Remember, Kevin, I was like going around the house, you and Blaze were like, oh, Texas is going to win. I was like, nope, it's Penn State, Nittany Lions all the way. And it ended up not happening, and I had to leave the apartment. You weren't there for when I had to leave the apartment, but I was really
I think I was busy.
That was the only time I was genuinely mad, other than Mizzou losing to Princeton. But yeah, Texas showed up this year, and I don't know. They're getting a full squad back next year, aren't they?
They did actually look pretty good. As much
They,
as I like to hate on Texas, they did look pretty good.
they looked
And
great,
Ace
and
Prosmus, I was like, wow, this is gonna be a tough matchup against UConn, but then Texas can make it. And Austin, I would think Texas probably has a very high chance of landing Ace Smith in the portal.
I would put it in the top 10 places.
Or
I think
maybe
Wichita
Texas
State.
A&M.
I think he's going to follow his coach to Wichita State.
Okay, but he also has teammates at Texas A&M and Texas.
And Kansas.
Oh wait, is there a Jesuit?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know
Or
if
is
he's
that
coming
the
back.
mayor?
He could come back for next year. I don't know if he will.
I think coaches trump players, and so I think he would probably
think he
most
goes
likely
to
go to
Wichita
Wichita State.
I
I
think
mean, if he goes to Texas, great. But I don't know how many players Texas is getting back, but I think they're getting a solid amount back. They're getting Tyrese Hunter back because he's only a sophomore, so that's crazy. We'll see. I'm excited to see where this team goes. I think maybe Marcus Carr has. No, I think they're all both. I think he's gone.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I think
We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see.
We can move
If
on
they
to
don't have
Houston.
everyone back, then we'll see. I think they get Dessou back, and I think they definitely get Hunter back. But we'll see. Texas has proven themselves in basketball for the past 4 or 5 years. They've been a little better every year.
Calm down. They still need to do a lot. We'll get to them blowing a lead to Texas. To Miami. Houston lost to Miami. I think that's the biggest side, and Miami dominated with 14 points. 14-point win.
Yeah, at the end, Houston just couldn't defend. You could tell that Sasser wasn't 100%. He's only a great defensive player, and he could not guard Wong. No one they put on Isaiah Wong was being able to guard him, and that's really what happened. Miami's so good at flooding the paint, and you need a good paint defense to beat them, and that's eventually what we'll get to later.
And Brandon Miller is going perfect from the floor. I mean, that's just a great performance, and that's nothing that Houston can do because Miller was just insane. It wasn't a very defensive game. There were only a couple steals. There weren't a lot of offensive rebounds. I don't remember. There wasn't a lot of rebounding in general, I think. And so there were a lot of free throws though, a lot of fouls.
Yeah,
And
we
so it was very
kind of use that to jump to the Miami Texas game because Miami got a lot more free throws, and I have friends saying because I have a lot of friends that go to Texas, they're all like it's rigged. Why did Miami shoot so many more free throws? Well, unfortunately for Texas fans, Texas shot a lot of 3-pointers while Miami drove the paint. And if you know basketball, when you drive the paint, there's a lot more tendency to foul. And when Miami's shooting 70% in the second half of a game, you're more likely to foul them. I mean, it's better than giving them 70% chance of scoring. Maybe foul them and they miss some free throws, and then they weren't missing free throws either.
But it's not like Texas was shooting poorly from three. I think they shot 39-40% from three. I mean, that's not terrible.
Texas shot well. My point with that distinction was the fact that Miami was getting the free throws because of the driving to the paint.
Because they were driving to the paint, and so I'm trying to further your point. Like Texas wasn't shooting bad from three, but they still lost. And because of that reason, and so
they had a pretty good lead. Tough. I was like, wow, I'm really gonna have to hear it from Texas fans, but
not Brandon Miller, Jordan Miller.
Yeah, I kind of
didn't I?
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. So yeah, now Austin, South or West?
Let's do South.
Okay. We'll go. Bama won pretty easily. We got that one. Maryland versus West Virginia. Maryland won. We had West Virginia. We had San Diego State winning. They did. Furman versus Virginia. Furman won. We had Virginia. Creighton versus NC State. Creighton won. The bottom bracket. Well, we got Creighton and Baylor winning and facing each other, and Creighton winning that one. Then Mizzou versus Utah State. Mizzou won. Then Princeton upset Arizona, and then Princeton upset Mizzou. And then so a couple big games like Furman versus Virginia. I don't know what that got, how that throw was going, and then Princeton. The Tigers proved to play pretty well.
Yeah, we'll just start back at the top a little bit. Maryland versus West Virginia. I think that was the game I was closest to 50-50 on heading into the tournament, and it kind of proved to be like that. I had no idea. I don't blame myself for picking West Virginia. I know, Jake, I believe you had Maryland, but West
Really?
Virginia had. Did you have Maryland?
I did not have Maryland. I had West Virginia. I believed in that squad.
Oh, yeah.
I believed in Stevenson.
Yeah, fourth best strength of schedule. It's such a tough road to get there. I believe that they were battle tested and obviously didn't work out.
I am not a big strength of schedule fan because it really proves nothing eventually in the end, because FAU made the Final Four and they didn't play anybody, did they?
FAU, I'll check right now. I'm pretty sure like lost to Gonzaga by 5 or 7 or something like that. Like they had some.
Maybe they did, but I'm just saying, like, strength of schedule doesn't really matter when you get to March Madness. It's all about how you're shooting, how you're meshing as a team, how you're defending. It's all about intensity. Who you play earlier on in the year, especially in November, December, really doesn't matter. It just gives you insight as to how they could play. But really, what matters is how they play in late February, going into March, and how well they're shooting the ball then and there. And so that's really what matters the most.
So regular season, I guess the best team they played in the regular season was at Florida. And then they played UNT, who should have made the tournament. UNT should have made the tournament.
UNT looked good.
CUSA won the CBI and the NIT. And the NIT championship was UAB versus UNT. Both teams in the CUSA.
Nope, and that's a Texas team that's legit, UNT.
Yes, UNT should have made the tournament. They're a team that I think the CUSA should be shown so much more props. They almost had 3 30-win teams this season. If UAB had...
Did you say they won the CUSA?
No, UNT won the NIT.
The NIT. Yeah, I know they won the NIT. I was about to say, if they won the CUSA, they would have...
No. The CUSA almost won all 3 tournaments because FAU...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
FAU won the CUSA.
Yeah. Well, but FAU almost won the tournament, and then NIT was North Texas, and then the CBI was Charlotte, who's in the CUSA as well. And then, I mean...
This is a question. If UNT wins the CUSA, does FAU still make the tournament even with their phenomenal record?
Yes. If the answer is no, I would the league or not the league. The committee needs to value teams that aren't in Power 6 much more than they do right now.
Mm.
And I think this FAU beat UNT, but twice. But is that a bad thing? UNT lost to FAU twice, yes, but they lost by 4 in both games. Does that mean UNT's bad? No. The UNT won 30-something games this year. I'll check again. They won 31 games. And UAB would have won 30 if they'd beaten UNT in the NIT final. And this is... It's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Let's go to we already kind of talked about Virginia Furman. I should have trusted my gut.
I believed in Furman. I picked them to win.
I was so high on Furman. I even told my friends from back home, like, Furman's legit. Furman, if they win, I won't be surprised. But I'm going Virginia. Whatever I pick Virginia to do, they do the exact opposite. So, like I said, I had them go to the Final Four. They lost in the first round. I had them the next year. I had them losing in the first round. They win the tournament.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be mad about that because that last sequence was ridiculous. He should not have thrown that ball away, and that shot was insane. And so Furman should have lost that game.
They had a timeout.
They didn't.
They had a timeout. And Princeton Zona, the fact that they would not go to their big men after the big men were cooking Princeton the entire game, and they kept on going to Kirk Krissa and the other guards. What are you doing, Arizona? Arizona beat themselves. This is Arizona just being badly coached.
disappointment.
Purdue, I don't think was all that coaching issue. It was more of the fact our team's not built for the tournament. We have one guy and no one else, and one guy can. No one can. Yeah.
Princeton out-rebounded Arizona. Can you believe that? They out-rebounded Arizona by 1 rebound, but still, that's the fact that they were on par with them is ridiculous.
Arizona should have kept feeding the big men, and they would have won that game by 20.
Yeah,
but instead of
Princeton shot what 15% from 3. Neither team deserved to win that game.
Arizona should have went to their big men, and then Princeton versus Mizzou. I mean, Mizzou may be the worst rebounding team I have ever seen. They are just grab a rebound challenge impossible edition. Every time I watch them.
College basketball, Austin, or just in general?
Say again.
Mizzou's football defense is actually pretty good. We got a good secondary.
No. I'm talking about worst rebounding team. Is that involved?
Oh no, I'm talking about in college basketball. At least a team in the tournament. Like if we're talking Power 6 school, they may have been the worst team in the country. Like they are.
I think.
The only team that may be worse at rebounding is Cal, and that's just because Cal won 3 games all year, and
they're just
but.
Yeah, I think I already told this in another video. Jake, I don't know if you heard it, but I think Mizzou played really well defensively, and to me, that's what their defense is, relying on hustle, and they did such a great job guarding the perimeter. I think they were just tired out, and Princeton was able to beat them.
It comes down to rebound. You cannot be out-rebounded by, what was it, 17 or whatever it was.
Something like 14 or something like that, but... Yeah, those offensive rebounds for Princeton, and they also hit a second gear and started hitting more of their threes. There was no hope for us, also because we couldn't hit a 3. I mean, everything that Mizzou was good at, they stopped being good at, and then the things we were bad at were exploited. So everything about Mizzou was just a very bad game. It was probably the worst game of the year. Demoy Hodge couldn't hit a shot. No one can hit a shot. And no matter what we did, there was no hope because we couldn't get a rebound, and then they just kept putting it back up.
And this is something that I think needs to be said to every team who's ever existed. I don't care how good you are on defense, what percentage you allow the other team to shoot. If you cannot grab a rebound, it doesn't matter. Because when they get their 5th opportunity and finally score, not only did they score, they also wasted 5 minutes scoring. So if you're down, and you're playing good defense, we need to get back in the game. Oh, we blocked a shot. Oh, they got the rebound. Oh, they missed that shot. We can't get the rebound. Eventually, the game just gets away from you because you're not only losing on the scoreboard, you're losing time. And there was no time for Mizzou
and energy. You're tired you're just so tired having to just play defense over and over again against this quick Princeton team. And so it was just all-time bad performance from Mizzou. Creighton. I'm just going to segue straight into Creighton Baylor. We knew what was going to happen there. Creighton was going to beat
Creighton too big, Baylor too hurt.
NC State scared a little bit. They were close for a bit, but Creighton ended up pulling it out, and then they made their run. And
NC State was a team I got higher on closer to the tournament, but I never changed my mind because I thought Creighton was so underseeded. I thought they were the best 6th seed in the tournament, and it kind of showed or proved to be that. And then, I mean, for Creighton versus Princeton kept it close, but what they're good at is what Creighton is already good at, and Creighton is just better at those things.
Yeah.
And then Alabama, SDSU, we already talked about. Should I agree with me?
And biggest one, I think, is that Austin was right in the SDSU hype, or being the proclaimer of SDSU.
I tried to tell everybody, this is the best defense in the country. Please do not second guess SDSU.
Well, SDSU was a great defense, yes, but they had not proven to be a phenomenal offensive team either. And normally, you have to have both to make it to the Final Four. And
that's true. That's true. But when Brandon Miller shoots 3 for 19, you don't have to be a great offense to beat that.
Yep, there you go. But Brandon Miller, like you said, I think the reason why San Diego State made it is because they had very favorable matchups. such as a Brandon Miller, who they could just shut down, and then Alabama would win or would lose. And so San Diego State did have favorable matchups, but I don't want to take anything away from them. Even though they were not a very great offensive team, they did have depth, and they did have guys who stepped up and would hit their shots. They would hit their shots, and they just out of nowhere. I mean, Trammell would hit shots, and Bradley came out of nowhere. Butler and Johnson and Parrish, Mensah, heck, Seiko would hit shots, and so I'm very impressed with the way San Diego State, and I'm gonna have to do a lot more examining about this San Diego State team.
I think that we can all agree. Well, Jake's best pick was definitely UConn, no doubt. And we'll get to that eventually. My best pick had to be San Diego State.
Absolutely. And you said they were going to this tournament, but you did say they were going to beat UConn in the tournament, and that's where you were wrong. That's where you were wrong. But anyways, having them there was amazing, and so I props to you, Austin. Good for you. I wish I'd done more research I wish I'd done more research and did more analysis on that team. I feel like I probably would have ended up being on your side if I had taken the time to actually ignore the Bama hype and actually try and figure out
as someone who saw Arkansas, a team that I believed was either going to be really good or horrible, no in between, which I guess kind of proved to be after they beat Kansas, but they were a great defensive team, and I saw they played against Arkansas. Alabama did. I saw how Alabama played against Arkansas, and I knew when Brandon Miller scored 48 and we lost by 3 that if Brandon Miller did not score that many points, they are susceptible to losing. And San Diego State knew a game plan. Hey, we shut down Brandon Miller, we will win. Just shut him down, and we will win the game. Don't worry.
Yeah, it just blows my mind because they don't shoot. They didn't. What was it? They shot 34% from 3 in the regular season, San Diego State, and so I just how, and so improbable and amazing run for San Diego State. It's gonna suck seeing some of those guys leave because this was a great team to watch this year, and so good run. Props to San Diego State.
I won't. There's a 99% chance I won't be taking them next year because of all the players they're losing. But I will get to take this badge with me to future tournaments.
Good for you. Good for you.
Austin, you brought up Arkansas. I think that's a good transition into probably our best region, which was
by far, not even remotely close.
Yeah.
Hold
Kansas,
on, real
Arkansas,
quick.
we got that one. The only one we missed was St. Mary's beating VCU. UConn winning, of course. TCU beating ASU. Gonzaga beating GCU. Northwestern beating Boise State. However, Austin, this one we messed up on the 15 seed beating a 2 seed.
Jake, what were you about to say?
Oh, Kevin, you were lagging like crazy, and so I didn't know if that was
okay. That's my bad. Thanks.
You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, my computer's working overtime, but
Gotcha.
We just picked the wrong 15 seed, Kevin. I don't blame myself at all. A 6'11".
Oh yeah, no.
As your best player, a 6'11" guy who can shoot threes, with a secondary guy who can shoot 50% from 3. I don't blame myself at all. Injury issues around UCLA. You have to make a risky pick. We just made the wrong one. To think, I would have had UCLA over Northwestern if they had won that game, and we probably should have had St. Mary's over VCU. I got a little bit too tied down to the VCU hype. And then the only game we would have got wrong in the entire thing was Arkansas, Kansas. And as an Arkansas fan, I believed in Arkansas, but I also believed that Kansas was better. So
that's true. I thought Kansas would play better, but they didn't. And Arkansas did.
I think Bill Self being out with his issue definitely contributed to an Arkansas win because Grady Dick was horrible in the game.
Yeah. Arkansas beating Kansas is not something I expected. Simply because Arkansas had shown no real promise all year, to be honest. I mean, nothing against Arkansas, but every time they would I would look at their squad. I'm like, oh, that's a good squad. And then they would play, and then they would lose, and then they would lose, and then they would. I mean, they didn't beat. Did they beat any quad 1 teams not quad 1 top 25 teams?
I'll check right now just for you. Let me go.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. He done named it for me.
In the regular season, they beat Mizzou. That was their one top 20 or top 25 team that they beat in the regular season. Oh, no,
And
they
then-
also beat San Diego State. So they
Okay.
beat San Diego State and
But that was
Mizzou.
way earlier on with Brazil and everyone, right?
Both of those games were no. I don't think that Mizzou one wasn't with Brazil. Brazil was already out. By
No,
then, I
against
believe.
San Diego State, they had
Yeah,
Brazil.
Yeah, San Diego State was with Brazil. With I firmly believe with Brazil, we're the best team in the country because he was a. We had a shooting defensive big who would shoot 40% from three. We have no shooters, and our best shooter gets hurt, and he's also a great defender. He was amazing. We
Brazil's
could not.
great. Brazil's great, but you guys just didn't have it. You guys just didn't have it. But beating Kansas was a big deal.
Too much. Hey, Austin, chill on the Kool-Aid. Chill on the Kool-Aid.
If we have Brazil to guard Sonogo, that game is not a 20-point game. We're not getting 20 balled by UConn if we have.
I still think you do. Trayvon Brazil's
No,
skinny. I still
20
think you get yes because
No.
Sonogo's
No.
come on, Sonogo's size is he's just gonna bully Brazil in the paint. Doesn't matter.
I'm not saying we would. Look, UConn.
Okay, I'll give you 12. I'll give you 12.
UConn was built for a run, and so
UConn was the best team all year. UConn was the best team all year. They started out 14-0. They started out 14-0, went 2-6, and then won the rest of the games. And they just barely. They just didn't win the Big East because Marquette went crazy.
Our record with Brazil was exceptional. I'll just put it like that.
Austin, I saw you drinking something, so I had to do the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, it's just water, Kevin. Don't worry.
All right, I gotta get water.
No, it looks like Kool-Aid. That's what it is. All right. Well, Austin, you scared the March Madness expert away.
Yeah, he needed water. He saw me drinking water. He needed water.
Well, I heard you say. I heard Austin say Arkansas would be the number one team in the country if they had Brazil, and then I got really
back-to-back Elite Eight appearances, a Sweet 16 here, beating Kansas. You add a player to that who I believe would have been our second best player on the team, and I mean it's all there. Arkansas, a great defensive team. I don't even think it's biased saying that after the great game that was Kansas because
Arkansas is a good squad. Musselman's a great coach, and so I definitely
coaching matters. Coaching matters. Hurley's a great coach, but I'm just saying, give us Trayvon, who's averaging 12 and 6, shooting about 40% from three, and I promise you that we would win a lot of games. He's also averaging 1 steal and 1.2 blocks, which is exceptional. That would add more blocks to a team that's already a top 8 block team in the country.
He's gonna be fun to watch next year. Who comes back for Arkansas? You guys are losing Smith in the draft, right? You lose Davis.
We're losing Ricky Council, Anthony Black, and Smith. No, Devo's coming back.
Devo's coming back. You get Walsh coming back.
Here's my question to you. I'm going to ask this. You're a draft prospect. Okay, you will be drafted if you go, but you may not be a first round pick. You may be late first, maybe early second. But here's the thing: if you're a first round pick, you get 4 years guaranteed. If they cut you after 1 day of signing that contract, you still get 4 years guaranteed. You sign a second round contract, nothing is guaranteed at all. That was the problem with the Mavs with Brunson.
You know what,
well,
Austin?
Here's the thing.
That hurts.
Here's the thing. Are you talking about Walsh?
Yeah, I don't think Walsh goes because I think
I like his talent, and I don't think he reached his potential this year.
I think he comes back because I think he would be he'd be a lottery pick if he could get some offense to go with his defense. He's a great defensive player. But
he's great, and he's feisty, and he's strong, and he's a great NBA body. And so, yeah, if Walsh comes back, I'll be on the lookout for Arkansas. But they are losing Council, Smith, Black, and we'll see what recruits you guys are bringing in this year. But
we're bringing in some impressive recruits, but we'll have to see if guys like Kamani Johnson come back because this is his. Next year would be his 5th year, and the same thing with Mackay, both Mitchell twins. But I was impressed.
but I knew UConn was going to beat Arkansas. I knew it.
Well, no.
I knew UConn was going to beat Kansas if they had played Kansas.
Heading into the game, I was extremely worried because we had no one to guard Sonogo. We were starting our tallest player on the court, Jake, is our point guard, Anthony Blake.
Yeah.
So the problem with that is, or at least our starting lineup, the problem with that is UConn's best player is not their point guard. So we have no one to guard Sonogo, and that was the problem.
Look,
So
I love Sonogo, but they would switch off whoever the best player was every game. Every game, there'd be a new best player. You get Newton, you get Hawkins, and then you got Caravan.
There wasn't a team like this. UConn team had a very dominant run, but I'm not going to compare them to all-time great teams that I think could have, for example, Baylor in 2021, I think would beat UConn this year. That team was so good defensively, and you add that to the fact that they had one of the greatest offenses in college basketball history. I mean,
I think Baylor in 2020, 2021 versus this year's UConn is one of the best championship games ever, to be honest.
Baylor team blew out an undefeated Gonzaga, like blew them out.
Well, Gonzaga's had a bad track record in games like that. And so I feel like you get a different team up against Baylor that year. I think Baylor had a more favorable matchup with Gonzaga, but nothing against Baylor. Baylor was completely dominant that year. They
lost 2 games.
Butler, Teague, Mitchell, Flagler.
The last 5 years, I would say that's the best team of the last 5 years is that Baylor team.
It's a good Baylor team, but honestly, they didn't have. I mean, Vital was the guy who they could match up with Sonogo, and so
I think the problem
let's hold on. You Kevin, you can cut this from the video, but we can talk about this after the video.
No, we don't do much cutting. It's too much.
Yeah.
Really? You don't do much cutting?
We like to keep it very raw.
Real.
Raw?
So
okay, so don't cut this then. Don't cut this then. No, I don't think. I think.
Jay, I have just one phrase for you, and it's
what
41%, 41.3% from 3. They're not touching it. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter. Sonogo has 20. Baylor is scoring 100 points. They're not actually scoring 100, but if the game goes to overtime, they may. But because they averaged 83 points per game and allowed 66. That's against Big 12 opponents, Jake. That's not against no bums. They're average game.
I know they're not bums. I just like this. Let me like this UConn team, okay? I'm proud of this team.
Beating teams by 18 average.
Yeah, I mean, and UConn was a 4 seed. Baylor was a 1 seed, and so yeah, Baylor would probably beat UConn, but I don't think they would dominate them. I think it would be a tight matchup. I think it'd be a tight matchup because San Diego State played a tight game. They were a great defense, just as good as Baylor was back then, right? And
yeah, but you talk about
UConn still was able to shoot the shots.
Normally you need offense to go with their defense. Baylor was the 6th highest scoring team in the nation that year with 4th in steals, 6th in points, 5th in assists.
I know, but I'm just saying because UConn was still able to score 76 points, which is a lot. They were able to score 76 points against the top 5 defense in the nation this year, who is comparable to intensity and quality of defense to Baylor. And so I still think UConn would have been able to shoot their shots, and UConn was also a top 10 defense this year as well. And so
Gonzaga was the best offense in the country that year and got held to 70 points while Baylor scored 86. And Baylor stopped trying at the end.
But Gonzaga wasn't a great defense, were they?
They weren't exceptional, but they were good. I mean, think about it. UConn
was exceptional. UConn was exceptional.
In the Final Four, Baylor beat that Houston team. That Houston team was a good defense, though.
What is this conversation?
Listen, that Houston team that Baylor beat in the Final Four, right? You know how many points they allowed? 58. 58 points per game that Houston team allowed. Do you know how much Baylor scored? 78.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed that average. That Houston team was a good defense. They had Quentin Grimes. They had Marcus Sasser. And they destroyed them.
No, I'm saying Baylor would win, but I don't think it'd be a demolishing. I think it would be a good game.
All right.
I think they got some size and they got some shooting. I believe.
So, point differential. UConn versus we have a time machine. UConn versus 2020.
Is Baylor trying the whole game?
Yeah, Baylor's trying the whole game. What happens if we do half? Baylor wins by still 10.
In the first half, they're probably up 10, but then UConn tries to come back, and I'll give Baylor by 14.
All right, full. All right, Jake.
At halftime, Baylor by 5. End of the game, Baylor by 8.
Oh wow,
8 or 9.
So it's close to being a demolishing. If you just add like 2.
No, 8 or 9 is not demolishing.
No, because there's free throws and stuff to go into it. A demolishment, 15 plus. If you beat a team by 15 plus, you dominated them. Because that doesn't include fouls. So you don't really foul when you're down 15. When you're down 8, you'll foul. Like with 2 minutes left.
It's just the thing about that Baylor team is just that they look. Just watching them that year, they were just. You'd be like, oh, that 3's going in, and it would. And then, like,
no. As an Arkansas fan, in the Elite Eight, our defense amazing that year. We're a defensive team. Arkansas is always a defensive team. And I'm like, okay, this is the game. We are going to shut them down. Arkansas that year, 3rd in blocks, 7th in steals, 5th in rebounds, 3rd in points.
I had Arkansas winning. I had that matchup. I had Arkansas winning that game.
Arkansas was that's the best Arkansas team I've seen. And I'm like, that's it. We have Moses Moody, who's a dog. And he's just going to
or hog,
yeah, or hog, I guess. I'm like, we're gonna do it. We're going to shut them down. That's what's gonna happen. And Baylor shoots a 3, and it's in. And Baylor shoots a 3, and it's in. And
I mean,
we lost by 9.
They looked good, and they were intense and aggressive, and would just hit their shots, and they were just meshing and gelling, and they are outcoached, and it was.
Baylor won by 9 against Arkansas, but the problem was that Baylor shot 53% from 3 that game.
They were unstoppable. They had one of the most amazing runs. You could kind of see it coming. You could kind of tell they were going to win it all after the second or third round.
I don't normally get in my main bracket, which this year my main bracket I had Gonzaga winning, but my main bracket that year I had Baylor winning, and it was probably the year I had no worries. Again, as a fan, I wanted to say Arkansas, we're going to stop them, but when I'm making brackets, I put no bias into it, and I had Baylor winning. Like it's Baylor. Like what are we doing here?
Don't even get started. I had Illinois winning.
That
was our official bracket group choice too. But yeah, to add a little bit more, I did think about UConn and their run because they dominated. It did get close in the championship game, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of Baylor's run to the championship.
Oh yeah, 100%. Baylor was dominating the entire way through, and UConn never really had a true test, except for maybe. Well, what would you call a true test? I mean, the closest game they played was 13 points.
Yeah, Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. They 3-balled Gonzaga.
Because UConn was good. That's nothing against Gonzaga. Gonzaga was a great team. They still had Timmy Strother, Smith, Malachi Smith. They had a good squad. Gonzaga had a good squad.
No,
Arkansas had a good squad.
No. I was about to say that Arkansas would have beat Gonzaga if we played against them. We did last year anyway, and that was with a better Gonzaga. But we'll talk a little bit here about the Final Four. SDSU, FAU, probably the second best game of the tournament. The only game I'd have above that, at least by viewing pleasure, was Kansas State, Michigan State. That's the game of the tournament. 98-93, offense galore. And I like defense, but when you're doing half-court no-look lobs to a reverse dunk, yeah, I'm going to love that game. That was remarkable. And FAU, will be back. FAU will be back, but they are moving. This is something to consider. They're moving to the AAC. They're going to Houston. They're going to where Houston will be. Now, Houston, this is Houston's next year is Houston's last year in the AAC before they go to the Big 12. But we will have a year with FAU and Houston, and this will be we may see some losses between those two that we normally don't see because they're in weaker conferences, even though I again said that UNT will make the tournament next year, or I guess UAB, but UAB is losing their best player in Walker. So UNT should make the tournament, but to see FAU and Houston in the same conference with Memphis, oh boy, next year the AAC is going to be rocking. And Wichita State, which is in the AAC, maybe getting Max A. Smith. We may have a four-headed monster.
A. Smith is not enough to bring Wichita State up to
no, I'm just
up
saying,
to that level. Come on.
They'll get some other transfers. Memphis is gonna get some recruits.
Look, I love A. Smith. He's not enough. He's not enough, and he's not enough to bring transfers too. He's not enough to bring transfers too.
I think he is.
I agree too. I think he has it, but I think he goes to A&M.
We'll see, but the AAC will be very interesting. We may get. I know Houston's about to leave, but we may have a year of a Big Seven. If FAU's legit next year, and Houston's legit, and Memphis is legit, and maybe Wichita State or any other team, if there's four teams that are really good in the AAC, like there has been in the past, maybe Cincinnati gets it together. We'll see. Maybe Tulane, maybe anyone else in that conference. We could be considering a Big Seven for one season.
Next year is going to be a very special year for basketball. It's going to be very interesting.
I hope the A-10s also, because we've had Big Sevens before. Back in 2020, the year they got canceled, we had San Diego State about to be a one seed. We had Dayton, who was probably the best mid-major in a very long time. That Dayton team was amazing, and then COVID happened, which is so sad. I wanted to see that turn so bad because it was so weird. Seeing San Diego State and Dayton as one seeds is crazy. I mean, it probably won't be in the future now that San Diego State's made a title push, but
we didn't talk about VCU at all. I mean, you mentioned VCU, but I would like to mention they're in the A10. They're in the A10, correct?
Yeah, A10 with Dayton and a lot of.
So VCU is going to struggle next year. We're not going to have a little conversation with VCU because they're losing Ace Baldwin.
They're not losing. Are they losing the great defender? What's his name? What is his name? Let me find that real quick because he was the best defender in the country using stats that me and a friend figured out how to do. Jameer Watkins is his name. I don't think they're going to lose him. They probably won't. He's a sophomore.
But Ace Baldwin is most likely going to commit to Penn State, apparently, in the transfer portal. I would like to add real quick before we continue. I want to know what we think about that. Who's coming back for Penn State, and are they a legitimate contender?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think they have enough. Unless A. Smith goes there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true.
All right, and to bring it back, FAU San Diego State, that was a phenomenal game. Defense was great, offense was great. Bradley was hitting those threes at the beginning of the game, which was really exciting. Phenomenal game. Almost stepped out of bounds. We're going to talk about that.
Dude, that was so close.
My goodness.
I had the game on in the background because we were at a party, and I was watching and I was watching with both my brothers, and I was talking with both of them, and my other one's like, the OG champ was there, and he was like 1 minute left, and then the other brother was talking to me, and I would like sneak looks, and he's like, you're good to watch it, and right as they come down, they hit the game-winning shot, which was incredible. But yeah, definitely a really good game. Yeah. I do love the Michigan State game because Noel was just incredible.
Yeah,
and what was my favorite game to watch? Go ahead. I'm thinking.
UConn. I do think we have to have the conversation. Best college basketball school ever, because a lot of championships. I don't want to just negate or not count old basketball, but if we're talking most men's basketball championships, it's really getting close between a couple teams. Now I understand that, like, here, let me pull it up. That UCLA has 11, but they have one since 1975. One. Like, how much does that impact? While UConn has 4 since the 2000s, and 5 if you count 1999, which is almost the 2000s. They're clearly in far away. There's only 2 other teams, I believe. Let me check. Got a fact check. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 5 teams that had multiple titles in the 2000s. Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Florida. And then UConn. UConn passes them with the most now because North Carolina 2005, 2009, 2017, Duke 2001, 2010, 2015, but now UConn with 4 in the 2000s. And that's extremely impressive.
Yeah, it really is. Any thoughts, Jake?
No, yeah. I will forever love UConn for this run that they had.
Is that because you picked them?
Yeah, I believed them. I believed in them, and then they lived up to it, and they performed when I needed them to perform. So I'm gonna fully, forever appreciate UConn for this, and because I knew they were. I knew all along. I was worried going into every game, but I always knew that they were going to pull it out, and not like comfortably knew. I was just like, when are they gonna come? When are they gonna do it? Like, when are they gonna pull it out? And then they would, like, Iona game. I was like, they're gonna win, but I was still on my toes. San Diego State, I was on my toes to the last 30 seconds, like, of the game. I was just. I'll give 2 minutes, the last 2 minutes, and then I've started to settle.
Rank this. We can kind of end it off on this note. I want you to rank March Madness watching it, not because you picked the right team, out of 10. The enjoyment watching the tournament based on other tournaments. So it's always going to be a 10 as a sports event because March Madness is my favorite sports event. But this one, I'd say an 8 out of 10. Compared to March Madness. It's not the best year ever, but
for me, 10 out of 10. Not just because UConn won, but because I just had so much. Every March Madness is a 10 out of 10 for me because I just have so much fun and I love it so much.
That's why I said it'd always be a 10 out of 10 for me. But comparing it to other March Madnesses,
all right. Comparing it to other March Madnesses,
nothing will ever top 2014 for me. Maybe.
I wasn't in that at that point.
Yeah, I wasn't that.
I wasn't around at that point.
I was 12, and I remember watching Shabazz Napier was my spirit animal for about 4 weeks there because
that is a quote that will be used in future liners.
Shabazz Napier, man. Oh gosh, he had a great man.
Top 10 college player all time.
Wow.
Two NCAA championships in 2 different conferences. They moved from the Big East to the AAC right before 2014 happened, and then they won it in 2014 as a 7 seed. He's the only 7 seed to do it. UConn is the only team in the last 15 years to win as a 3 seed or lower. They've won as a 3 seed in 2011. Yeah, 3 times. They're the only team during that 15-year span to win. Period. But they won it 3 times. As a 3 seed in 2011, as a 7 seed in 2014. We're the only NBA player on the entire team is basically Shabazz. They have one other guy who played 5 games during the COVID year, which if you want to talk, sure, maybe we can count that. I'll give him props. He's technically an NBA player, but Shabazz carried that team, a 7 seed. And it was a 7 versus an 8 in the final. And Aaron Harrison and all that run where they kept on hitting buzzer beaters or game winners. The Harrison twins. That was just...
Yeah, I wasn't around then to be able to, but my favorite, okay. Compared to others, I would say, just not a 10 because the team that I picked to win won it all. It was probably the best bracket I've done since 2017. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at the ones that I've saved or that I've screenshotted because they don't let you look at the
You
ones.
have to do it based on percentage though, because I'm looking at your bracket right now, and just on this website. So this website, March Madness, like the actual NCAA official website, has less people that actually use it. So your overall rank, Jake, this bracket 13,555. The
Is
bracket
that
you have
bad or
here.
is that good?
No, it's
Is that bad
extremely
or is
good.
it-
Your
Yeah.
overall percentage, you're in the top 100%. Now, less people use the website. The bracket we did together is 20,000 something, and it's in the top 99%. But that's what you really have to rank your best brackets on, because a bracket like this, where it's a 5-9, 5-4, the chance of that being a great bracket for you is low. So comparing it to other people is how you say, "Oh, that was my best bracket."
Okay. Well, yeah. This was easily. All right, well, anyways, this was easily one of my best bracket years. I had one on. I mostly look at ESPN. ESPN is what I keep track of mine on. And so yeah, I was in the top 12% or the top 12,000 in one of them there for one of my brackets there, and then top was 100,000 for the other. Um, and so this was probably my favorite because we had a lot of great players, a lot of great runs, Cinderella stories, exciting shots, and upsets. And Mizzou was in it. That was cool.
Oh, Houston's going to the Big 12 next year.
Oh,
They'll be in the Big 12 next year.
Yes.
Houston's going to be in the Big 12 in 2023, 2024.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. I thought it was in 2024.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Jake, you said a 10.
What?
Yeah, this year was a 10. The only other 10 was 2016, 2017 when UNC won it all, and that was when I got an entire region correct.
That's my. If we're talking last, like I made a bracket. I didn't make a bracket, but that year with South Carolina almost upsetting Gonzaga. No, that one was amazing. Sindarius Cornwell, PJ Dozier, that South Carolina team, one of my favorite teams ever.
And then
if they would have
beat.
Yeah.
And then they had that Duke. They had that Duke team that was Tatum and Grayson Allen, and oh my god, they had another great player. I forgot. And then you had UNC, who was a great squad. You had Kentucky with De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, you also had Lonzo Ball.
Lonzo Ball at UCLA.
No. That's if we're talking
Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was on Louisville, and then man,
yes.
Monte Morris and Deontay Burton on Iowa State that year.
Oh, yeah. If we're talking years I made brackets, that would be my favorite year. Years I watched is still 2014, but 2017. Yeah, that watching
I got that entire the region with Oregon. I got entirely correct. But it wasn't that difficult because there weren't crazy upsets. But I did have that entire region correct, and that was just so cool. And that had Frank Mason, Josh Jackson, Kansas team.
Oh wow!
It had that.
Yeah,
it had that.
Memories.
Baylor. Shemi Ojale was on SMU, and had.
I'm really surprised you knew that.
I remember watching that game. They played USC. I remember watching that game live, and I was freaking out because I had SMU with the upset. I think, or was that the upset? No, SMU wasn't the upset. SMU would have been the actual genuine winner.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm saying. It wouldn't have been an upset. Is what I mean.
Yeah.
But that USC team upset them, and then you had Northwestern almost beat Gonzaga in that second round. You had Javon Carter on West Virginia that year.
2016 was also really good because that was the year that Syracuse made that crazy run,
and then Buddy Hield on Oklahoma.
Yeah. In that the game, what I never forget his name, but now I just did. It's he had a crazy game in the Elite Eight against Virginia in a crazy comeback, Syracuse versus Virginia. He went to the NBA afterwards, but shouldn't have after that year.
Are you talking about for Syracuse?
Yes.
The guy who played
Malachi Richardson. I didn't even have to search it up, but I think that's his name. I'll
Okay. But speaking of the future, Jake,
Yeah, what's the future? What do you want to ask?
have you been aware of Twitter and the rumors on there?
I've tried to stay off Twitter for a bit.
All right.
After the whole Caitlin Clark Angel Reese controversy stuff, I I couldn't escape it, and so I just wanted to detox to get away from all that.
Oh, yeah. I've been
And
off
so,
Twitter for probably a week or two. It was
mhm.
right before the Mavs took a nosedive.
What's going on Twitter, Kevin?
Well, Austin, do you have your name?
do I have my name?
Or, well, you were looking for a name. I didn't know if you want to do that so we can end that part. Or no?
Oh,
You
I
were
said
looking
yeah,
up-
Malachi Richardson. He had a
Okay.
he
All right.
had a crazy game. He had a crazy comeback against Virginia that amazing.
Back to we've had so much fun talking to you, and we did exceptionally well. So, we are interested in a contract extension. Are you interested as well?
I'll have to think. After my performance
Please
this
take
year,
your time. Let's extend this video for 20 more minutes.
After my performance this year, I won all three of my bracket groups. I won money for one of them.
Well, but this is the only bracket group that matters is the outsiders' opinions. And since Jake won, no one will get a liner because Jake signed non-compete.
Yeah.
So we won.
Let me see. I'll have to review other offers.
The contract this year it may include more videos. There may be more videos to have.
That's
because-
true. That's true.
Well,
Yes,
More
I
videos.
will sign the contract. I enjoy working with you,
Okay,
gentlemen.
wow. You could have just said you were interested, but we have that on recording. He will sign, Austin.
I will sign
So
verbally.
even
I'm
after
verbally
offer-
committed. I'm
Don't-
verbally
don't
committed.
Be DeAndre Jordan. Don't be DeAndre Jordan. Jake, I mean Kevin.
Nice
Kevin
callback.
remembers that as a Mavs fan.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Who would be Chris Paul and Blake Griffin in that scenario?
Oh, I think I know exactly who those two would be.
Would we be Blake Griffin?
No,
No.
because we weren't. No, we're the Mavs.
Well,
Right
yeah,
now.
I know. That's why I'm.
But
I'm
we're
confused.
bringing him back. It's a little bit.
So there's a mix.
Yeah, it's somewhat
could-
somewhat there. As you like to say, there's a connection,
Yes, or correlation.
correlation, same thing.
We'll see.
Anyways,
But yeah, all right.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah. I'll
Jake.
come back. I would love to win another bracket challenge.
All right.
Yeah.
So everyone start preparing, and the liner still exists. And thank you to the OG champ and Riley, Andrew and Riley. Riley's intro was on this episode. Congrats to them, and hopefully one of y'all can join them someday. That's all we got. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.
Go.